What if your happiness was, in fact, your prison? What if every show you binge watch, every notification that buzzes in your pocket, every moment of instant pleasure was just another brick in the wall of an invisible cell? Most of us believe we're living at the peak of freedom, but that might be the most dangerous and successful lie ever told. Stay with me until the end to find out if you are the master of your fate or a happy slave of the modern age. We were taught to fear the tyranny that arrives in boots and tanks, the oppression described by George Orwell in 1984, where control is maintained through pain, fear, and constant surveillance. We look around, and seeing no big brother watching us from every screen, we breathe a sigh of relief, convinced of our freedom. But this is a dangerously incomplete view of power. The most effective tyranny isn't the one that forces us to obey. It's the one that seduces us into loving our own servitude. The true blueprint for our society was drawn by another prophet, Aldous Huxley, in his Brave New World. Huxley foresaw a different kind of control, one far more subtle and devastating. Control through pleasure. He imagined a world where people will be pacified not by pain, but by an endless stream of entertainment, instant gratification, and pharmaceuticals. A gilded cage, so comfortable and fun that no one would ever even think of escaping. This cage is built from the distractions that fill every second of our waking lives. The infinite scroll on social media, the next episode that autoplays, the food that arrives with a single click. Each of these seemingly harmless pleasures acts as a tranquilizer for our conscience, keeping us too satisfied to question, too busy to reflect, and too numb to feel the weight of the chains forming around us. We are becoming a civilization so distracted that we've lost the ability to perceive the reality of our own situation. The question, then, is not whether we are being controlled, but how that control operates on such a deep psychological level. The answer is a mechanism that, once understood, will forever change the way you see the world and yourself. To understand how we become willing prisoners, we must look to the experiments of B.F. Skinner, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century. In his lab, Skinner demonstrated the power of operant conditioning. He found that he could shape an animal's behavior far more effectively using positive reinforcement, rewards, like food pellets, than punishment, painful stimuli, like electric shocks. The lesson here is profound and chilling. Pain breeds resistance, fear, and the desire to revolt. Pleasure, on the other hand, breeds dependence and compliance. A rat that receives a reward for pressing a lever will press that lever again and again of its own free will. It becomes an active agent in its own conditioning. No one has to force it. Its own desire for the reward does all the work. Now, replace the rat with yourself and the lever with your smartphone. Every like, every comment, every match, every notification is a micro-reward, a pellet of social validation that conditions your brain to repeat the action. Digital platforms are the largest Skinner boxes ever created, and we are pressing the levers thousands of times a day, feeling in control, when in fact we are merely responding to a carefully engineered program. If this idea is starting to resonate with you, tapping the like button helps spread this message to more people who might feel trapped without knowing why. Skinner gave us the how the mechanism works, but it was Huxley who predicted what would be used as a reward on a societal scale. What are the superdrugs, the Somas of our brave new world, that keep us so docile, satisfied, and voluntarily enslaved? In Brave New World, the drug Soma offered a holiday from reality. Today, we don't need a pill for that. We have far more potent and socially acceptable substitutes. The first and most obvious is on-demand entertainment. Shows, movies, games, and videos are designed to be binged, eliminating any space for boredom, reflection, or the simple act of being alone with your own thoughts. It is our digital Soma, a narcotic that drowns us in a sea of irrelevance. The second modern Soma is the trivialization of human connection. Promiscuity was encouraged by the state in Huxley's novel with the slogan, "Everyone belongs to everyone else." Today, we see an echo of this in a culture of instant sexual gratification, facilitated by dating apps and easily accessible pornography. Deep, meaningful relationships, which require effort, vulnerability, and commitment, are replaced by shallow, disposable connections, keeping us isolated and emotionally fragile. Another pillar of control is the technology of distraction itself, personified by the smartphone. It is our portable dopamine syringe, always ready to inject us with a hit of immediate pleasure to avoid any discomfort. Feeling anxious? Scroll the feed. Bored? Watch a short video. Lonely? Seek validation online. Silence and introspection, the fertile ground for critical thought and rebellion, have become conditions to be avoided at all costs. In your opinion, which of these modern Somas is the most powerful in our society? Endless entertainment, instant gratification, or constant distraction? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective enriches this discussion. The price we pay for this life of continuous comfort and pleasure is far higher than we imagine. We aren't just trading our freedom. We are trading the very essence of what makes us human. The first casualty is critical thought. A mind constantly bombarded with stimuli and distractions loses its ability to go deep, to question narratives, and to connect ideas. It becomes passive, reactive, accepting the reality presented to it without resistance. Next, we lose meaning. Psychology and philosophy teach us that a purposeful life is forged in overcoming hardship. It is struggle, challenge, and sacrifice that give our achievements value. An existence dedicated to avoiding all discomfort in pursuit of easy pleasure is, paradoxically, an empty life, devoid of depth. We remove suffering. But in doing so, we've also removed the possibility of true joy and fulfillment. This apathy is reflected in our civic life. The historic cry of "Give me liberty" or "Give me death" has been quietly replaced by a modern whisper: "Give me streaming, fast delivery, and Wi-Fi, but don't bother me with the responsibilities of freedom." This passivity is the dream of any control system. A populace dumbed down by pleasure lacks the energy and the mental resources to fight for its own rights. We have arrived at a crossroads. On one side, the easy path of pleasurable servitude. On the other, the arduous trail of conscious freedom. But how do you escape a prison when the bars are made of your own deepest desires? Is there a way out? The escape doesn't start with an external revolution, but with an internal rebellion. The first and most crucial step is awareness. It is the act of recognizing the cage, of seeing conditioning mechanisms in your own life. This video, and the discomfort it might be stirring in you right now, is part of that awakening. It means shifting from autopilot to making deliberate choices about where you invest your attention. The second step is to commit small acts of digital and existential insurgency. Practice dopamine fasting. Schedule digital detox periods. Challenge yourself to read a difficult book instead of binging a series. Allow yourself to be bored and see where your mind goes. Cultivate real-world relationships that require time and presence, instead of collecting virtual connections. Every act of voluntary discomfort is a blow against the bars of your cell. If you're looking for more content like this to strengthen your mind and live a more purposeful life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This journey of awakening is ongoing, and I'd be glad to have you here. Ultimately, immunity to the seduction of easy pleasure comes from having something more valuable to strive for, a purpose. When you have a clear why in your life, a project, a cause, an ideal, the cheap distractions lose their power. Your purpose becomes your anchor, keeping you from being swept away by the tide of irrelevance. Freedom is not the absence of chains, but the ability to choose which chains you are bound to. We began this journey by questioning the nature of our happiness. We've traveled to the minds of Huxley and Skinner, uncovered the architecture controlled by pleasure, and identified the Somas that pacify our society. Finally, we've charted a map to reclaim our own humanity, a path that demands awareness, discipline, and above all, purpose. The former slave Frederick Douglass wrote something that, long before Huxley, perfectly summarized our dilemma. When a slave becomes a happy slave, he has effectively relinquished all that makes him a man. The cage is unlocked. The door has always been open. The final question isn't whether they will enslave us, but whether we will choose our freedom. The choice, as always, is yours.